Betzavali.
Hi, Patrick Hines.
Fam, it's one of those weird weeks that we're taking off. We literally are off 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, and we're not taking off because we're celebrating America, because we're pretty pissed off about what they're doing, but we wanted to give you a gift.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're going to play episode 1 of our most recent Patreon series. It's called Wild Crime. This case is bananas.
Yeah.
It's 4 episodes about a man who had 2 wives, 18 years apart, both mysteriously died.
Those are air quotes around mysterious.
Mysterious, exactly. And he was the only witness both times. And this lady who works in the woods, I call her the woods sheriff. There's like woods police.
There's a lot of badass women here just getting shit done and burning down the patriarchy.
They investigate the guy, they investigate the murders, they try to figure out what's happening. So we were obsessed with this series.
Yeah, there's a lot of nature, which we struggle with at
Very
times.
strange.
But,
very strange. No Bigfoot was harmed in the making of this documentary.
Or else we wouldn't have done it.
I know.
But no, badass women. We're getting the guy. We're burning it down. Let's go. Let's do it.
So, fam, all 4 episodes are available right now and ad-free on the Patreon. You can also get over 300 full ad-free bonus episodes to download a binge.
That's right.
Right this second.
Yeah.
We're talking The Staircase, Serial Season 1, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, Don't F With Cats, Tiger King, Lorena, the Menendez murders.
The Jinx, The Vow, Heaven's Gate, that Gacy thing on Peacock.
Which is what it's officially called.
Yes. Tons of stuff.
Yeah, now's a great time. If you've never joined up for the Pates, go get it now. Go to our website, click on the Patreon link, or you can just go to patreon.com/truecrimeobsessed. And that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
We love you.
We love you so much. Thanks for everything.
Okay, bye.
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 We love you. Stay safe out there. We open with a bear roaring in our faces. And someone goes, wild places, wilder crimes. It starts with a big bear mouth right in our faces. F1.
Hi, Jillian Betzavali.
Hi, Patrick Hines.
Fam, before we get to it, a couple things. Make sure you're checking out Jillian's new podcast every Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.
Go back to the beginning and listen if you haven't. It's so good. Let the women do the work in the TCO feed every Thursday.
Yeah, you do nothing. It's free.
No.
It's like there for you.
It's free. It's there for you.
Yeah.
Come see me on tour. We're going to, I keep forgetting, we're going to Florida, Texas, Atlanta, and St. Paul. Where's St. Paul?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
St. Paul,
I can't wait.
Yeah.
That theater looks especially nice.
Good. Tell everyone I said hi.
I will. Well, we're going to FaceTime you probably.
Okay, great.
You'll be in the middle of your nightly routine.
My skincare routine.
Jillian's in like a night. I imagine you like in an old-timey nightgown.
No, I wish. No, it's just like probably like boxers and a t-shirt or something.
Look at hot, Betzavali.
Yeah, right. Okay, we'll see.
All right, girl. What are we talking about today?
Wild Crime. It's on Hulu. It's 4 eps. This is the first episode, and it's called She Had a Bad Fall.
911, what's the address, the emergency?
My name is Harold Henthorn. I'm in the Rocky Mountain National Park. My wife has fallen. She's in really critical condition. I need a rescue team immediately.
I was told to go to Deer Ridge Trailhead. At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
A lot of things here don't add up.
From the outside looking in, Toni and Harold's marriage looks like the perfect life.
Every year on their anniversary, Harold would plan a trip.
The phones rang in, and it's my brother. My brother said, Toni's been in an accident.
She was gone.
Now we have an investigation we have to conduct.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
He said he was doing CPR the whole time.
Her lipstick was not smudged.
There was something more to the story.
Most people didn't know that Harold was married before. This is 2 wives for Harold that have died now.
And that was very suspicious.
We immediately open at the scene of the crime. So we're in the Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, to which I said, you know what? It doesn't look that nice. There's a lot of national parks that look real pretty, not this one.
I was going to say, well, this was the site of a murder, but they all are sites of murders. That's the thing about the national parks, unfortunately. So we learn about Harold and Toni.
Yeah.
And every year on their anniversary, Harold would plan a trip. Toni didn't know or have any input on the trip, but she knew that this was part of the surprise.
What's your opinion on that?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think Harold is a very, very controlling piece of shit.
I was just
going to
say, it's not sweet. It's very controlling,
it feels like I'd be very stressed out. So if you want to do that, then how about every year you plan something together? Instead of just surprising, I never know when the surprise is coming, but I know that it's coming and I don't know where he's dragging me to this year.
And it's like the Ani, the honeymoon murders of it all. She didn't know they were going to South Africa.
I know. It's very strange.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's their 12th anniversary. And so we learn about Toni. Toni is Harold's wife.
Toni Burleigh from Mississippi. She was an eye doctor, ophthalmologist, and very successful and a great mom.
She's like a very successful eye doctor and a great mom. The thing I love about Toni, we'll learn about her later, she wanted to be a doctor, but she decided she wanted to be an eye doctor because she knew like she would have like downtime. There's very rare, I would imagine, like eye emergencies. As somebody who's literally had eye emergencies, they're not that frequent.
I live in fear of an eye emergency.
Remember there was a time when I was getting shots directly in my eyeballs?
Yeah.
Shots, you guys, needles in my eye.
I sleep over it. I think that's insane.
I know.
I think that's horrifying.
But I didn't go blind.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Toni supports that.
So like the thing about this like yearly surprise is, or at least the year that this one happened, Harold would like call her employees and get them in on the scheme.
And like call her parents and say, can you watch Haley this weekend?
I feel like if it were you, you would say to your staff, like when he calls, don't do that. When he calls, at least just tell me it's happening.
Right. But Harold is one of those guys, like you kind of can't.
You know, it is one of those things I want to say to people, when you have a friend or a sibling or a child who has a spouse that everyone is like, he's fine, but he's a little weird. Start having that conversation.
Yeah.
Don't keep it to yourself. Find out what other people think. If everyone thinks the dude's weird, you should all be on that same page.
And like, if you're a person who loves surprises, we just
We're
know.
back to this? Okay.
Yeah, but we just know that Tony's not really into it.
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
for us to sort of put out calls to action to everyone is based on the fact that Toni was like, oh, hi, because we see it. That's why.
You guys, there's an actual video of the surprise.
Which I will get into it, but it's basically like Couch Guy from TikTok. We'll get into it. I'll explain it all to you. It was viral for 2 seconds.
I don't know what Couch Guy is.
So it's Saturday, September 29th, 2012. It's 5:55 p.m. Harold calls 911.
We hear the call.
911, what's the address, the emergency?
Hello, my name is Harold Henthorn. I'm in the Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay.
My wife had fallen from a rock on the north summit of Deer Mountain when she's in really critical condition.
He's just saying that his wife has had a fall. She's fallen 30 or 40 feet. He says she's in very critical condition.
Yeah. And so Mark, we meet 2 Marks here. Mark number
that's
1.
So confusing, guys.
I mean, they can't help it, but we'll do our best. So Mark number 1, Mark Flaherty, he's a ranger in the National Park Service, and his job is to be the first to locate the patient, right? So they also, the way this documentary is made, all of these people who signed up for jobs that like they knew they weren't going to be on camera, they're now forced to be on camera. So Mark, like he's like, I'm a ranger at the National Park Service. I did not sign up for like take one. So because they have Mark reenacting putting his backpack on and heading out the door. And because then we meet Mark Pita, who's Mark number 2, another ranger.
When that call came in, I took the role of incident commander.
Trying to get a ranger here is going to take you at least an hour. Is there any way that you could bring a helicopter in?
And he goes, I played the role of incident commander. And I just thought, like, I just see the slip in the playbill. Tonight, the role of incident commander will be played by Mark Pita. This is Mark's National Park Service debut. Earlier credits include national parks, historic parks, and of course, a quick stint at Action Park.
Good work, GP.
Thank you so
That's
much.
comedy gold right there coming out of your mouth hole. So we learned that like where Harold and Toni are, where she's just fallen, it's an elevation of 10,000 feet. That sounds insane, but Denver's really high. So like the whole thing starts at like Denver starts at like 8,000 feet or whatever. So it was like a 2,000-foot hike that they took or whatever.
Right. So Mark number 1 gets there at 6:15, which is fast. He got there in 20 minutes.
It wasn't an easy place to get to.
You'll see 2 large outcrops, about 9,800 feet. We were between the 2, about 200 feet off the crest of the hill.
I'd never been in that area. I couldn't see because it was dark.
And they make the point that, like, and this is so fucking calculated, it's at dusk, so it's too late to bring in a helicopter that would have been really fast.
Yes.
And they make the point that, like, it was too late to fly a helicopter. That's why this piece of shit chose that time for this to happen.
Exactly. So this was not an easy place to get to.
Yeah.
And even the park rangers are like, what is going on? Like, where am I going here?
Can I tell you that one of these the first Mark that gets there first, says, and I quote, he uses the moon to vector in on their location. What does any of that mean?
And I was like, she lights the way for Mark. The moon lights the way. I don't know. Because nature is fucking kind of amazing.
You're such a witch.
I know.
Love it. I love when your witch comes out.
Well, the moon is, she's
I know.
She's
I'm
got
just
your
saying,
back.
I like it when you channel the nature.
Oh, thanks so much. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And he like used the moon. I think that's cool.
To
anyway,
vector in on their location.
I love it. But so
I wrote, I would not be good at this job. And I'm like, there's Bigfoot everywhere.
Bigfoot's
everywhere. Just trying to sleep. Leave her alone.
And also, Bigfoot, when something bad is happening, could you step up? Could you
know
help
what?
us a
That's
little
actually
bit?
very true. I
Because
don't want to call
She saw this
She
whole
did.
thing.
Yeah, I don't want to call Bigfoot lazy, but she was not getting involved in this.
Bigfoot?
Yeah, I know.
You could do the nice thing and then say like, and no one ever saw me.
And you know what?
run
In this
away.
instance, eat the husband. We're all fine with that.
Totally.
Save the lady, eat the husband.
Right, and she won't say a word because you saved her life.
Yeah.
Bigfoot, you know what? So just remember also that Harold has been telling 911 while he's waiting for everyone to come that he has been doing CPR on his wife nonstop.
Yes.
Remember that.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
I wanted to also say that, like, this is so the outdoors because the ranger, who, like, doesn't exactly know where they are, has a whistle.
Yeah.
And Harold, the husband, also has a whistle. And they're whistling back and forth at each other trying to find each other.
I know.
That's weird. That's like some 1800s shit.
I know.
You
It's
know
really,
what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So Mark gets there, assesses Toni and the
Yeah.
situation.
She was laying on her back and her head was wrapped. It was obvious she had a head wound. Her eyes were partially open, and I evaluated her for a pulse and respirations. I told Harold, I'm sorry, but she's gone. And Harold said, I think so too. And he seemed emotional to me.
Mark says to Harold, the husband, he goes, I'm sorry, but she's gone. And Harold says, yeah, I think so too.
But Mark makes the point, like, he seemed, like, appropriately emotional.
Right.
And-
He's like, yeah, looking back on it, there was like a tear. It was pretty okay. So Mark and Harold head home, and the rangers and the medics will stay with Toni's body till morning when they can remove her. That's
Which is
how
just,
far
like,
into the woods they were.
That is such an amazing and selfless thing to do.
Yeah.
And it really, truly, no jokes here, like, that is so outside of my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when there's, like, a person dies in the woods, it's not safe to carry the body out. So you, like, these rangers are, like, providing such an essential service.
Yes.
Just in general, like, being out there keeping people safe in the woods.
And keeping themselves safe
Yes,
overnight.
I know. And sleeping next to a body because you
I
can't
know.
safely bring it out in the middle of the night. Like, I wholeheartedly applaud everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Mark assumes that it's a tragic accident, which 99% of the time it is.
Literally,
says.
he says. Like, that's the actual number.
However,
Yeah.
they still have to do what he calls a fatality investigation. And that's where
Yeah.
Mark number 2 comes in, making his Broadway debut.
Right. And so we also meet Paul Larson and his man bun. He...
Wait a second. I said the same thing. I said what's cool about Paul is that he has long hair.
He really does.
But unfortunately, they have it in a low bun. I want to see that hair, Paul.
God, that River Phoenix hair.
I know.
If you're a person whose situation that is and you're listening to this, take a minute and realize how blessed you are.
You're screaming at them.
I'm sorry. I've just always wanted that hair.
I know,
It's
girl.
been a long tour of me showing pictures of myself in 8th grade
and just
with my 8th grade
finding
hair.
ways to wear wigs.
I know.
It never
I know.
lands, but goddamn it, you're doing it anyway.
Oh.
So Paul Larson is another ranger. He's the lead field investigator. But again, they have Paul like standing in front of a cabin, putting his ranger hat on.
I
Like
know.
Paul did not sign up to be on camera.
I know.
But so anyway, Paul and his hair walk us through the scene.
There's a tree that on one side, the branches had been kind of knocked off or broken off. I called the impact tree. But you could see that was in a place where I imagine Toni probably impacted as she fell to the ground. There were small things that didn't totally add up.
Yeah, and he's like looking up from where Toni fell, and he sees a tree where the branches have been like ripped off.
He calls it the impact tree.
The impact tree. Oh,
and he
God.
thinks that this is where Toni fell, right? So
Yes.
he's saying like there are small things that are not adding up, aka
Yes.
what we like to call red flags.
Correct. So, number one, they're in, and we'll get more into this later, they're in a very obscure area. Paul doesn't tell us this. We get this later from Beth, but they're like way off the trail. So, like, she fell from a cliff that is like way off the hiking trail.
And it's also like not where your average hiker would be.
Exactly.
You know? And there's also, he says, he found an untied boot. And
Yeah.
he says, usually during a fall,
I know.
shoes tend to not untie themselves.
Paul!
Paul, that long hair's starting to show.
I know.
I love it. Keep it up. And also, her backpack and camera were both very close to her body and landed right next to her after a 40-foot fall, and she was actually holding them.
And what's so interesting about that, too, is that, like, you would think that, like, where they were up above, they were, like, resting, right? They were, like, why would she have her backpack on and be
Right.
holding her camera?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It looks all very, I don't know, perfectly placed.
Exactly.
Weird.
Exactly.
But Paul's like, the camera is very important.
Yes.
Stay tuned. But what is also important is the map they find in Harold's car.
It was a park map, and it had curious drawings on it. Deer Ridge Trail was highlighted. Below Deer Ridge Trail was written the word hike with an X circled, and then above the Deer Ridge highlighted trail was a highlighted X. And that was really curious because it was right about the location where Toni had died. So I seized it as evidence.
So they're inventorying the car, and they find this map, and on this map, there's an X.
With a circle around it.
And the X
X marks the spot.
Right, and all the Rangers in unison say, like, that's where the body was found.
Yeah, and Paul goes, that was real curious.
It's also just like, I love that these idiots are so bad at this. If you're going to go kill your wife and you pre-planned it and you marked, literally X marks the spot, throw that map away.
Burn the map before they get there.
What is wrong with you?
Like, you did it. Ugh.
I know.
You know what? Great.
I know.
Great.
Hands in the air. You guys made her mad.
Great.
Stay
Stupid.
being bad at this.
Yes.
I also love that Paul says he found the map curious, so I seized it.
That's
Seize
right,
the
Paul,
day,
and your
Paul.
long hair. Seize the day. So this case also involves ISB, which is the Investigative Services Branch.
Yeah.
And they investigate complicated felony crimes, aren't they all?
But they also only do this in national parks, and we meet this one lady who's like, we spend our day like climbing mountains and
Christy?
traversing rivers. Most people in our line of work don't do that. We get it. You have a hard job.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. These crimes become federal offenses because they're on federal land.
I bet this fucking idiot didn't realize that when he picked this spot to kill his wife.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And also, we have to get better. We have to get cameras all over the parks. I'm sorry.
Floodlights, cameras.
Because the nature is great. We got to preserve the nature.
You know, pull the trees out. Let's just make everything floodlight zones. Get rid of the trees.
Let's get rid of those 6,000-year-old trees. No, we got to keep the nature, but for everyone's safety, we can't just have like easy places to get away with murder.
Exactly.
There's too many of them.
I mean, I don't know a lot about much, but I feel like we all know, like statistically, if you want to disappear yourself, go on a hike and never come back.
Right.
People will assume you got eaten by a mountain lion. And number two, if you want to kill somebody, go on a hike and have them fall off a cliff. Because
or just let people assume they were eaten by a mountain lion.
Right, exactly. And you're right.
Also, leave the mountain lions out of this.
I know. Let them gotta eat. You know what I mean?
You're in their living room. You walked into their den.
I know.
Literally their den.
It's what I was saying during Grizzly Man, where like that bear murdered him.
He did
Bears
not.
cannot commit murder. They can only have dinner.
They're just hungry.
They're eating.
As am I.
Exactly. I know, me too.
But the thing about this is that there are 85 million acres to cover in the national parks and only 34 agents. That's bananas.
That's too many acres, too
and
few
it's not
agents.
sustainable.
I know.
Like, it can't continue.
Yeah.
So
Jillian's Law.
Jillian's
coming
Law.
back for season 3.
Not sustainable. Actually, Beth's Law, because Beth Schott is here
Oh
and
my
she's a
God.
special agent.
We're the detectives of the National Park Service. Because ISB agents are so far and few between, I was an office of one agent. So Ranger Faraday called me when he had some suspicion about Toni's death. He presented his information that he had, and I said, I think we've got a case.
She's like, yeah, we're the detectives of the National Park Service.
She's
She's awesome.
She loves her job.
And she was an office of one agent.
Yes.
Explain that to me. Like, she was just doing it all herself.
I know. I mean, honestly, like, yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy.
How many times and how many ways do I have to say this is not safe?
And also, if you want me to go visit
Yeah.
our nation's national parks,
Yes.
make them safe for me to go visit.
I know. Preserve the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Get rid of the murderers.
Like, make sure we, like, protect the land.
Yes.
It's beautiful and gorgeous. We need it. Please make it safe.
I know. I couldn't agree more. Beth is doing her best on that front.
Right? She's trying.
Yeah.
So, October 1st, 2012, 2 days after Toni's death, Mark number 1, I'm sorry to call you Mark number 1 and
I
2, but I
know.
met you first,
Yeah.
Mark Flaherty.
Yeah.
So, Mark goes to interview Harold about what happened.
So we're told that, like, this is, like, right after the wife dies, right?
2 days.
2 days. So he goes to visit the grieving husband, who they're all a little suspicious of. They think this guy might be a fucking murderer. He goes by himself, and then when Harold is like, let's go down to my basement office for this interview, he goes,
Mark's like,
not
okay.
safe!
Mark has probably run into a couple of mountain lions. I feel like he's like, I can take Harold.
But I'm like not going into a murderer's basement, even if I think I could beat him up. You know what I mean?
Same.
Not doing it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So Mark shows Harold the images that were on the memory card on the camera. Right?
I have so many questions for Harold in this moment. Did you know the camera was there? Did you know the memory card? Did you know they were going to be able to pull the images? Like, holy shit.
I think Harold is a fucking boomer.
Yeah.
And he thought that if he just smashed the camera, then it's like a film camera where
Totally.
that works. No.
Nope.
Our memory cards are smarter than you, Harold.
It's true.
And they save everything and nothing is ever deleted.
It's
so
true.
Harold thought he outsmarted them. Keep being dumb,
It's
Harold.
true.
Loving it.
Harold told me that when the fall happened, she was walking rapidly toward the edge of the cliff. He said he didn't witness it. He was preoccupied with his phone and receiving a text that said Haley had won a soccer game.
So Harold says, you know what? I didn't see my wife fall, but I was actually too busy texting on my phone about my daughter's soccer game, so I don't know what happened. But you know she was running towards the end of a cliff at a rapid pace.
But the thing is, his story is already full of holes because he's referring to this text that with like the quote nanny about his daughter's soccer game. This text came in at 5:54 p.m., which like it takes Beth 5 seconds to figure out that's the exact time he was also calling 911.
Yeah, 911 at 5:55.
Yes, and so like his story is his wife fell. It took him 45 minutes to hike down to her, and then he called 911. So the timeline does not add up.
No. But then, so that's all Mark's like, all right, okay. Then Mark just slides the map across the table with the X marks the spot thing.
I mean,
Harold is like, okay, meeting's over. That's it. Harold is furious. He doesn't have an answer. He kicks Mark out of the house. He stopped answering Mark's calls. Mark's like, and I never heard from him again. But clearly there's more to the story.
I'm like, did the other authorities get him? Like, what?
Right. And because Boomer Mark didn't really destroy the memory card, now they still have that. Harold, you cannot answer the phone all you want. They still have this memory card, which is invaluable.
Yeah. And so they're all saying, I love that Beth is like, literally, this made our spidey senses go off.
Within days of getting involved in this case, I talked to Toni's family, the Bertolets, and they gave me insight into Toni. We discussed how they learned about Toni's death and what they heard that night.
We learned sort of how the family found out about the death. And we'll get more into this later, but essentially, like, from the murder scene, Harold calls one of the brothers. That brother calls the other brother, who calls the parents. And it quickly goes from, like, she's not in good shape to, like, she's dead.
Harold was very busy in the moments after his wife died. And we'll get into that bullshit timeline in a minute.
Yeah.
But Caleb is here. He wrote a book called The Accidents.
Caleb is also very cute.
He's an investigative reporter.
I love him.
Cute Caleb.
Yeah.
Toni Henthorn came from a lot of money. Her family's done very well in the oil and gas business. Her family wasn't old money, but they very quickly became part of the moneyed crowd. But to their credit, kind of never lost the work ethic and the ability to see the other side.
And he's the one who's telling us, like, look, Toni comes from money. But they were also, like, good at, like, having money, but, like, being, like, of the people. I always love when we hear that in these documentaries.
Yeah, so her brother Todd says his dad was a geologist and made some really great discoveries. And I'm like, yeah, like coal?
I know.
If you're like oil money?
I know.
Like, okay.
I know. He was, like, a fucking geologist who worked for, like, one of the big oil companies.
Right.
Like,
and the point was, like, because they weren't old money, like, they never lost their work ethic. They worked really, really hard to be successful. And Toni was awesome. She was a musician. She was a great student. She was an athlete. And she married a dentist for her first marriage.
Yeah.
They met in med school. The marriage didn't last. And Toni was devastated. And because of her religion, which we'll get back to, she saw divorce as something shameful.
And, you know, we'll get into the religion of it all. Like, you know, I hate that stuff. But, like, not that I hate religion. I just, like, hate it when religion makes you feel bad about yourself.
And when it, like, defines you when it shouldn't.
It's supposed to do the opposite, and I hate it when it doesn't.
Agreed.
But, like, you know, after the divorce, she throws herself into work, and she's making money, and, you know, she starts her own practice. And
she opens up two practices.
She's
killing it.
She's killing it. She's very active in her church. She sings in the choir, but she also, like, runs, like, a Sunday school for grown-ups.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool.
Bible study, I guess.
Yeah.
She sings soprano in the choir.
I know. That's
easy.
the high part.
I know. We meet Allison, her best friend.
Yeah.
And she tells us that, like, Toni really wanted to get married and have a family. And Caleb comes, your boyfriend Caleb. I have
cute.
No, not when he says this.
Okay, I take it
because
back.
he goes, you know, the divorce really set her back and her clock was ticking. Caleb, don't talk about Toni's clock. Get your hands off Toni's clock,
You know
please.
what? None of your fucking business,
None
Caleb.
of your business,
I take it back.
Caleb, her clock was ticking.
But we learn, best friend Allison tells us,
I was pretty shocked one day when Toni and I were having a conversation, and she just outright said, I met a guy online. This guy named Harold.
When he was wooing her online, some of the things that they talked about was that they both wanted children. It's a Christian dating site, so they were both Christian. He said all the right things to her, I believe.
Harold tells Toni everything she wants to hear because Toni's great and an open book, and she's just being honest. And she is kind of saying in her own way, Caleb, like, I really want to get married. I really want to have a family. I really want to have a family.
And they do that thing, like, very quickly where he's just like, I want kids, you want kids, you believe in long-term marriages, and we're both Christians. Let's do this now.
Let's do it. Yeah. So Harold tells her that he's an independent fundraiser for nonprofits, specifically churches and hospitals, quote, which have a religious bearing.
And Caleb tells us, like, he was the first person to tell you he made a ton ton of money doing this. And I was like, wait a second. That's not a thing. If you're like a private fundraiser raising money for not-for-profits, you're not loaded. Like,
it's not for profit.
There's a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
People should have been asking more questions.
But also, they have a religious bearing. I'm like, but they also do the science, right? Like,
I know.
They do the science and they treat everyone who comes into the hospital, right? Right? They have the science.
And the thing is, like, we meet Tony's sister-in-law, Rhonda.
Mm-hmm.
She is married to Tony's brother.
Yes.
And, like, they were really close.
My first impression of Harold was he seemed very excited and always very kind of exuberant in his mannerisms.
Beautiful artwork.
Talked very loud, talked very fast. Always felt like he was trying to impress me.
This is where we get everyone was privately thinking that Harold was kind of shady.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, he's nice, he's fine. But secretly, they're like, he talks really loud. He only talks about himself. He's like a blowhard who wants us all to think he's really successful.
And Todd, Tony's brother, says, Harold is so great. You know how I know? Because Harold just kept telling me how fucking great he was all the time. Ugh, I hate people
know.
like
And
that.
I'm like, I'm not to say that obviously it's not anybody's fault, but like, he goes on to kill her. And like, maybe if everybody was more honest about how they you don't always have to make nice.
I agree.
You don't always have to make drama. That's a lesson I could learn, says my therapist.
Well, yeah. I don't always make nice, but then, like, people are annoyed. It's like, if I don't, I'm so sorry. Like,
I know.
But also, no one ever thinks that their loved one is going to get killed. You know, like,
True.
it's such a bizarre thing to get to.
Yes.
So, like, everyone is thinking, like, all right, he's a blowhard and he's annoying, but, like, Tony's really happy and it's really what she wanted. So they just sort of, like, I don't know.
There are other red flags.
What was concerning is how quickly everything kind of progressed.
They got engaged in February and got married in September. They didn't see each other but 6 or 7 times during that whole period.
They got engaged in February, got married in September, and they only saw each other 6 or 7 times in that time.
And they don't explain why?
Well, the only thing I can think about is that they're very religious, and Toni definitely wants to have kids. She's in her early 40s, and maybe it was like saving sex for marriage. I don't know if that
So you can't even see each other?
Well, they didn't live near each other is like what I was getting, because they met on the internet or whatever. But like, Toni wants to get married really quickly because she wants to have a kid.
Of course.
Like, that's the most important thing to her. But like, I don't know, spend more, maybe they're Skyping or whatever you do back then.
Yeah, I know, but like, you're adults.
I know. I know.
Really?
I know.
You know, but they have this gigantic wedding. BFF Allison says it was a class act. Whatever that means.
So Harold and Toni, 2 years after they get married, are leaving Mississippi.
It's so pretty, isn't it?
Apparently, he always wanted to go to Colorado. He always wanted to bring Toni there and away from her family and her friends and her practice and her church.
The thing about this that really sucks is that Toni loses her practices, which she loved and worked so hard for. She gives up the Bible study and the counseling in the church, which she also loved. She gives up her friends and family, which she also loved. Harold's isolating her.
Right. And somebody says that now. And it's like hindsight is 20/20, but like Harold always wanted to move her to Colorado is how they say it. Not Harold always wanted to move to Colorado.
Yeah.
They say Harold wanted to move her to Colorado to get her away from all of these things.
Right. But then like Toni gives birth to Haley when she's in her mid-40s, and this is a dream come true for her.
Yeah.
It's everything she ever wanted. And from the outside, it looks like a perfect life.
And can we just like slow down on this for a second? Because like this is so hard for me because like this little girl loses her mother and her father in the same moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
These fucking men, like the Vanishing in Connecticut or whatever.
Exactly.
You know
We
what I
just
mean?
did this.
Like 5 kids who lose their mother because the husband killed her and then they automatically lose him too. It's just awful.
It's awful. Nobody thinks.
Nobody thinks.
Selfish.
So we're back to the day of the murder, and this is, oh my God, you guys. This is where we go back to how Harold had arranged with the staff to give her the afternoon and like the next couple of days off.
Yeah.
So like they do it behind her back, and the staff thinks they're doing a nice thing.
And we meet Christy with her dog, and her dog doesn't get a lower third, but whatever, it's fine. They look like a hound mix of some sort. It's fine. I love them. And Christy, I guess, and I'm not saying this as a dig at all, but I think Christy is new here, like to work, because she thinks it's really amazing that Harold wants to do this. And she's like, oh, I get to be in on the surprise. And so they hid him in a room like he was a patient.
Yes, they like fill her calendar with like a dummy schedule for the day, and they walk her in.
And they film it.
And you hear her go, what are you doing here?
I know.
She hates this.
She hates it.
I think she was probably like, I don't want that surprise. When you see the video today, you don't see that happy person that's like excited to go.
Remember Couch Guy, everyone, on TikTok?
Fill me in.
This was viral for 2 days. So what happened is there was some trend where you would have some sappy song and then show like someone coming home from being deployed or some big like reunion, right? And this girlfriend goes to surprise her boyfriend at college and no one's happy to see her, especially her boyfriend.
No.
And he like doesn't get up from the couch, so he's known as Couch Guy. But then there was all this speculation for days, for like 3 days about like he was surrounded by girls on the couch and it's like, was the girl, like everyone was zooming in like we were detectives. I wasn't doing any of that, but zooming in like, is he passing the phone to her and all this stuff?
God.
And everyone's like, look at Couch Guy's face. He's like, what are you doing here? It's the same thing.
Who posted the video? Did the girlfriend post it?
The girlfriend did.
Why?
And then she spent a week defending this guy. It was like what everyone was talking about on TikTok for like 2 days, just like Couch Guy and just analyzing the look and the hand and the this. But
Oh my
really, all you need
God.
to know is the look on that guy's face. He was like, oh.
I'm still stuck on that girl who hit the bedpost, but
Oh my God. She's so new. Couch Guy was like light years back in TikTok time.
Oh my God.
But anyway, Toni is not happy to see Harold. She's kind of like bewildered.
Yes.
She's like, oh God. But
I
off they
know.
go anyway.
Yeah, and this killed me. So he has a go bag for her, right? So like that means they're leaving straight from work to go to their vacation. And he knows I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
He knows he's going to kill her.
Yes.
And she doesn't have an opportunity to say goodbye to her daughter.
Yes. I thought about that too. He's a monster.
Like, he doesn't even let her say goodbye to her kid.
I know.
And like,
that she wanted, I can't, whatever.
all I can think about like is in the moment that she's like falling off that cliff and lying there dying, all she's thinking about is her kid.
Oh my
Like,
God.
I can't not think about it.
I know. I fucking hate this guy.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Toni has people working for her right now, right?
We have some photos from his cell phone and her camera that recreates their trip up there. And photographs that we recovered showed us exactly where they were.
So Beth and Mark and the Rangers can recreate their trip through the photos that Boomer Harold didn't realize he didn't destroy.
So there are photos from Toni's phone and also from the memory card from the camera.
But the photos are like an actual photographic map. I mean, like we see, like Beth is on the trail right now. She's like, see this tree? And then there's a picture of Toni in front of the tree.
I was just going to say, this is what the documentary does so well. Beth walks us through their trip because they were able to recreate it from the photos. It's amazing.
And like, honestly, that's the only thing that gives me like a little bit of hope here that like Toni has good people working for her now to really get to the bottom of this.
Because like we see that the last photos that were taken on her phone is Harold standing over this ledge that he's about to push his wife off of.
Right.
And he's holding for dear life onto this tree, like clinging to this tree. And
that
like
is still
looking
there.
over.
We
That's
see
still
it like
there.
with Beth right now.
Yes. And like Toni is taking pictures of him, like, look at my husband. It's like, look at this beautiful view behind him or whatever.
And then there were 2 deleted photos that we were able to recover that were pictures of him standing up there. Why are there so many of them, and why are they 15 minutes apart?
So Harold's story is, I whisked her away to this romantic weekend getaway at the Stanley Hotel, which looks like a massive mansion.
Yeah, it looks very cute.
It's like this like Colorado like lodge mansion-y kind of thing. They spend the night there. The next day they have breakfast, they pick up some lunch, and they head out for a hike, and now Beth takes over.
Yeah, so we also get Beth's backstory here for just a second, which I was like, oh, that's fun to know.
She was an East Coast hippie who always wanted to be an artist.
I know! And she's like, I just want a job where I can work outside, so I got a job like in the parks department.
She's awesome.
And here I am 30 years later.
Yeah, but basically like Beth knows her shit.
I wrote, congrats, Beth, you did it.
East Coast hippie turned park ranger. I love it.
Most of the Rocky Mountain National Park is wilderness. And so these remote locations can be incredibly difficult to get to. You have to have a certain level of fitness.
So Beth explains, because she knows what she's talking about, this is not an easy hike at all. She says you have to have a certain level of fitness. It's not a hike that you do if you're a non-hiker or to like celebrate an event.
No, and also we are told that they started this hike late in the day.
Yes.
They start the hike at 2 p.m, and Beth is like, it's not a super long hike, but it's like not really safe to start a hike that late. It's like a 3-mile hike.
When sunset is at 6,
Exactly.
like it's just a bad idea.
Like obviously he's doing this on purpose.
Of course.
So that it'll be dark when he kills his wife.
Of course.
Yeah.
So Harold's story is that they hiked until the trail plateaued. Then they went off the trail for some privacy. And Beth goes, if you look around, and then she does, the whole place gives you privacy. There's no way would you know about the scenic view spot unless you scouted it?
So the thing is, like, they do this cool thing where they pull out and they show a map. So they show the actual trail, and then they show, like, where they're going off trail to go down. They are, like, hiking down the mountain off the trail just before dark.
I know.
To, like, go see this, like, scenic view. The Herald is pretending, like, maybe, like, he doesn't know that it's there. Beth's whole point is that he scouted this.
Of course.
He did this before to know exactly where to take her.
I asked him, well, why did you go down to that spot where Toni fell? And he said, well, Toni had seen turkeys, gone down to investigate. I was like, turkeys? Really? Wasn't even aware turkeys would be in that kind of environment. When I questioned that, he said, well, I don't know about turkeys, but definitely deer. And then it was, well, we went down there for a romantic time.
And then Harold's like, oh, you want to know why? Because we want to see the turkeys.
Right.
And Mark's like, I'm sorry, what? You want to see the what? There aren't any turkeys here. And Harold's like, I'm sorry, I meant the deer.
Not the turkeys,
Silly
the deer.
me,
Yeah.
the deer, Harold, sweetheart.
But then he also says we wanted romantic time.
Also, everyone does something here that makes me crazy. No one calls it sex.
No, I know.
We're talking about, honestly, we're talking about a woman's life, an abusive murder, and an abusive husband. But let's draw the line at saying they wanted to have sex, whether it's a lie or not.
And
Everyone's like an intimate moment, private time.
Right, yeah.
Like, just say it.
Also, like, I'm sorry, but these old people are not fucking in the woods. Like,
No,
that's just
in
not
the
a
middle
thing
of
that's
a hike?
No,
Like,
absolutely
come
not.
on.
As the sun is going down and they're off the trail, if this really was an innocent thing and you're going off trail just as the sun is going down, you would have died out there anyway.
Yes, but just call it what it is.
Yeah.
It makes me crazy.
And so they're saying that, like, from this romantic spot, he still is like, let's go farther. It's a 60-degree hike down this boulder field to the cliff where, like, he pushes her off.
And remember, Beth's like, you really have to know what you're doing as a hiker here. And then
But this is the best line. Beth has the best line here.
There's no reason for anybody to go down there unless you want to push someone from a cliff.
She goes, there's literally no reason for anyone to go down there unless you wanted to push someone off the cliff.
Oh, I mean, obviously, but we also learn that Toni has an old knee injury.
Yes.
She wouldn't want to hike
No way.
across the parking lot,
Yeah.
let alone down that, like, Harold.
And this is where I start to wonder, at what point did he make her do it? You know what I mean? Like, did he have a gun? Like,
No.
did he? No.
Let me tell you, it's their 12th anniversary.
Uh-huh.
She's been, okay. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
she's been putting on a happy face and doing everything he wanted to do
Yep.
since she moved from Mississippi to Colorado.
The Kathleen Peterson of it all.
There was no force that she knew that she had to put on. You know, he's doing this nice thing for you.
Yeah.
It's your anniversary.
Oh,
you got to go do it.
God.
That's exactly what happened. So the theory, because all of those pictures on the ledge of Harold where, like, it's the same pose.
And they can tell that it was taken over 15 minutes. And they're like, why? Why would they be taking pictures for 15 minutes? And this broke my heart.
The theory, and this word makes me
I know.
The theory is that he was trying to lure her over there, saying, look, it's no big deal. Let me take a picture of you.
Yep. And I gotta tell you, as somebody who is, like, desperately afraid of heights, like, I can only imagine the fear she was feeling.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, she probably just eventually said yes.
Right.
Because she knew she had to.
Yeah.
But the idea of these pictures are him trying to lure her.
I know.
To
That word, like,
I know.
killed
But
me.
it's also the exact right word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then also, now we meet the coroner and, like, we get another bomb dropped on us.
She kind of tumbled down the rock face. And you see injuries to the extremities and to the head because it's tumbling. She had abrasions of her forehead, and she had a large laceration or tearing injury to the top of her head to the scalp. So it was almost a scalping type injury on the top of her head.
I gotta tell you, these coroners, like, every time we meet a coroner, except for in Grizzly Man where the guy was really creepy, these guys really give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, they really take their job as, like, figuring out how this person died very seriously.
Yeah.
And it's traumatized. This guy, he's, like, barely can look at the camera
Yes.
because he has, like, information about how this woman was killed, and that's his job.
Like,
it's a science, you know what I mean?
Yes, and they're wired in a way, and, like,
Yeah.
thank God they are.
Thank God.
They're not like us.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people get a lot of flack for, like, being emotionless, but it's
Yeah.
like we need people to tell these stories and to
Totally.
figure this out. And if they're, like, not screaming queens like the two of us, God bless them.
I know.
But, like, we
I
need
know.
them.
Yeah. And this guy, you could tell he's been really emotionally affected by this.
Yeah. So it's horrible. There was multiple blunt force injuries. He basically says that she, like, tumbled down the rocks.
It wasn't a clean fall. It wasn't
Right.
like she jumped out away from the rocks and then hit the ground. She literally, like, tumbled down
Yeah.
this rock.
And Beth says that it's clear that Harold also also moved her body.
Yes.
He dragged her.
Yes.
And so another thing to talk about, there's a ton of blood here.
Yeah.
A ton of it. And we're back to the 911 call because Harold, the husband, says it was a concussion. He doesn't mention blood at all. And there was a lot of blood here. And Beth and me and everyone's asking, why wouldn't he mention that?
Right.
Like, she has very serious injuries immediately. Like,
she's bleeding out.
She's bleeding out. And like,
it's proof that he wanted her to die. Like, that's what we're getting at.
And in case you need more red flags, here we go.
Over here, and you can almost see some remains of he built a fire. He said it was a signal fire, but that's not really going to signal to anybody. There's a lot of things here that don't add up.
He said he was doing CPR the whole time. If he'd been doing mouth to mouth, that lipstick would have been smeared more around her face.
So remember, he's saying that he was giving her mouth to mouth the entire time. He's doing CPR, but we learn that that's not true because he built a fire.
But also they say it was like 2 matches. It wasn't a real signal fire. He wasn't trying to help because they were whistling to try to get to each other.
Exactly. And then also the coroner is saying, and everyone is saying, like he said he was giving her mouth to mouth. The lipstick would have been smeared all over her face. It wasn't. It was totally intact.
And now we move on to the cell phone records because remember the big part of his story is that the text message from the nanny about the soccer game came like a minute or the same time he made the 911 call.
Yeah.
Because out of the corner of his eye, he realized Toni was gone and she didn't make a sound when she was falling off this cliff.
Right.
Give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
But the 911 call, Harold keeps hanging up on the dispatcher to save battery.
Right.
But that's not what's happening because he starts making other phone calls to Toni's family.
Right. And text messages.
And also, I learned this like not too long ago or maybe a long time ago. I don't know. Time doesn't matter. But the more you turn on and off your phone, it actually drains the battery.
Totally.
So just like don't touch it.
Yeah.
And then you save battery more.
But we learned that one of the people he's texting is Toni's brother, who's a surgeon. And they're texting back and forth throughout the incident. And again, this guy's a doctor. Like the fact that like Toni's bleeding out in front of him and he doesn't mention it to the doctor means he doesn't want them to know.
And he's typing in a really weird way. It's
Yeah.
like Barry ... urgent ...
Yeah.
Toni injured, fall from rock, critical. And it's like, wait, just say more.
Right.
Use your words.
Right. And so, like, again, it cuts back to the coroner who's like, he said he was doing CPR the whole time. He wasn't. He was building that fire. He was texting with Barry. He's calling 911. Like, she's just lying there dying.
And apparently with his phone that's dying, he sent and received 98 texts, all while giving CPR nonstop, all while calling and hanging up on 911.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break.
And then, like, we learn, like, about his behavior in the days after the incident.
And I thought, wow, he just seemed kind of together for having gone through what he went through.
No tears, no sign that he had been crying, no, struggling with his voice to get the words out. This is not a normal grieving husband.
All of the friends are like, it was really fucking weird. Like, we get all these friends saying, like, Harold told us that Toni was dead. There was no emotion in his voice. Everyone knows something is wrong. Harold calls his friend Ron to ask to, like, officiate the memorial service, and Ron agrees. And Ron is like, you would think this guy would be, like, imagine Mike is dead, and you have to plan a memorial. Imagine Steve is dead.
No, I need someone else to, like, take
I would be doing it, of course.
I mean, I couldn't.
No, just the thought of it, you would be an absolute fucking wreck.
Yeah.
Fucking Harold gives Ron a fully executed memorial service. It's as though he wrote it before Toni even died.
Well, yeah. So he did this in like, there's a video montage and all these curated photos.
Yeah.
36 hours since he lost his wife.
Like, all the people are saying about this video montage is that, like, if it was you and I was like, okay, I'm going to take care of everything, but we want to make a video montage. I'm like, can you just, like, show me where the photo albums are?
I'd say go to my Instagram. Like, find what you could find. There are 4 pictures there, but I don't know what to tell you.
And the whole thing is, like, it would be a mishmash of pictures from all over the times and places. This is so perfectly curated to only show Toni's life since she married him.
And he's in every photo.
He's in every photo. And, like, family members are left out. Friends are left out. Nothing before they met. It was all very, like, narcissistic and just, like, completely curated. And they're like, he put this together before she died.
Right. And also, like, because he's such a piece of shit and it's all about him, he wanted to be in the memorial service.
Totally.
Normally, you would think that if you're going to fake it, just have a bad, like, slideshow.
Exactly.
But he needed it to be about him.
Toni's funeral is the ultimate chance for Harold to kind of control the narrative. And what Harold chooses to do with that moment is pretty telling. Everybody notices, the Bertolays especially, where everyone's sitting in the funeral. They're brought in, they're seated away from the rest of the family. Harold is one of the last people escorted in.
He's trying to keep the family away from the friends because it seems to me like he doesn't want the friends being like, is this weird to you guys?
Right.
And the family being like, yeah, is this weird to you guys?
And then he was the last person escorted in because he wants to be like the star of his wife's funeral. Also, one of the friends has a dog. We also don't get a lower third, but I can tell they're a Shiba Inu, and also I love them.
Hashtag lower third the dog.
Please.
Hashtag lower third the dog.
I don't ask for much.
Also, like, the family is very surprised to hear Harold saying that, like, Toni was adamant that she wanted to be cremated.
Now, yes.
Okay.
To be fair.
Yes.
Because they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
To be fair, I haven't had a discussion about that with anyone in my family.
I have a conversation about it like every 8 minutes.
I also don't know what I want to happen to me,
tell
so
me
maybe
right
that's
now.
why. I don't know what the answer is.
Tell them all.
I have to decide right now?
Yeah, my only thing about being cremated is that I fear that in death you can still feel things.
Oh.
I know.
God.
I mean,
New fear unlocked.
I know.
But I guess it was a surprise because of her religion, right? That's probably
well,
why.
Who knows?
It was
But like obviously he wants her cremated because that gets rid of any evidence of like anything ever being like exhumed in the future. You know?
Should I make a decision about what I want to happen?
Right now? Right. We're not leaving this booth until you tell me.
Fuck, I don't know because I don't want it on the record. This podcast lives forever.
That's true.
I'll get back to you.
All right.
When I know, you'll know. How about that?
That sounds great.
And I'll make sure you have photos. No, I won't.
But like everyone is saying, he's not sad about the fact that his wife is dead, that the mother of his child is dead. He's only annoyed about the investigation. And he says to somebody, Toni had to go and get herself killed on federal lands.
I mean,
he
also,
says that to someone.
Harold.
I know.
Shut your mouth.
Or
actually keep talking.
Yeah.
But like this whole, I just want to go back to the whole, like the way he's acting at the funeral and the slideshow.
Yeah.
It's not just like weird and insulting. It's hurtful.
Yes.
Like it is so hurtful to the family and friends that like can't mourn her in this way that they want to
100%.
or have some like open conversation or like do this together.
Yep.
He's like separating him and sort of Toni from everyone else by having it like the daughter wasn't in the slideshow.
I mean,
pictures of her as a kid with her parents.
Yeah.
No. Someone says it was almost as if he wanted to believe, and he did believe, that Toni's life started once Harold came along.
100%. And the way this episode ends is that like
Beth.
And then the park received a letter about his first wife. Harold's first wife tragically died in an accident, deemed an accident at that time in 1995. There were so many similarities between the death of these two women. The similarities are too eerie to ignore.
We get like all of these people saying like, yeah, real bad vibes at the funeral.
Yeah.
Like this investigation's really weird. And Beth's like, and that's when we got the letters about his first wife. And I'm like,
I know.
You were born for this. Fuck this guy.
Oh, fam, thanks for checking out episode 1 of Wild Crime. Look, the other 3 episodes are available right now and ad-free, like everything is, on the Patreon. You gotta find out what happens.
Yeah.
Tell them about the badass ladies.
There are so many badass ladies. You met some of them. Also,
Yeah.
we never get back to the sheriff with the long hair.
I know.
really want to see him with his hair down. Let your hair down.
It's true.
You know?
No, it's a really fascinating case. The mystery runs deep, and it's a real great investigative piece about letting the women do the work.
It's true. It's very true. And God, just burning down that patriarchy. Just give
It's
me
true.
a match and some kerosene.
I know,
Let's go.
totally.
I'm ready to do it.
Just go to the website, click on the Patreon link, or go to patreon.com/truecrimeobsessed. You can get over 350 full ad-free bonus apps right now as well.
Yeah.
You also get ad-free versions of the regular episodes, ad-free versions of Jillian's new podcast, Let the Women Do the Work.
Yeah, and sometimes we just hang out with you. We do after parties, we
true.
do AMAs, you send us questions, and
Yeah.
we just like hang out.
Yeah.
It's a party.
Oh, it's a scorcher out there, fam.
Yep,
Drink
yep.
your water.
Yep.
Stay hydrated.
Stay safe, be good, you know? We need you. We love you. Hope you enjoyed this little treat in your podcast feed today.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing like a radio, like a radio show.
Give him a little Z Morning Zoo.
It's 6:08 and 8 moves past the hour. We're gonna do a fart contest right now.
We love you, fam.
We love you.
Bye.
Sorry about that.